The challenge at King's Place is how do you create contemporary architecture using traditional materials, and how do you make the facade, which is a lightweight non-structural element, look structural. And the way we did it here was actually using precast concrete panels with stone prefixed to them that were then brought to site as large jigsaw pieces and then fixed back to the structure. What we have is a very limited time on site, so we have to bring larger and larger elements to site to enable us to build and seal the building quickly. The curved stone on the rotunda is specially cut using wire saws rather than rotating big blade saws. So we have curved precast concrete panels with curved stone on the top to get the pure radius of the rotunda. The rotunda would never look as elegant with a faceted stone on the surface. The stone is oolitic limestone, and it's been cut in a special way to try and get more modelling, more figuring and more pitting on the surface, so that the limestone looks more like travertine marble than limestone itself.
It's actually cut against the grain of the stone. This is the same stone that we're using for the floor, the main floors in the building, but cut in the perpendicular direction to give this sort of cheese effect of banded lines. Each stone has its own interest, and the general effect on the building is the overall thing never looks bland. Also, the quality of the workmanship has really come out in these stone panels as well. It actually looks very crisp and clean, and the junctions don't actually look as if they are big pieces coming together. It does actually look as if it has been made with each piece of stone being put up separately. But of course that would be impossible with over 12,000 pieces of stone.
We wanted the street elevation, that's the York Way elevation, the main public face of the building, to be quite an eye-catching idea. And it's developed out of a technical matter to do with preventing solar gain and such like, whereby you have a free layer of glass, a third layer of glass, that stands away from the main elevation with a gap, and that gap is like a chimney and lets the heat get taken out vertically out of the system. And the idea we had was that because this third layer of glass is away from the floors and the structure of the building, it's free to be a shape, an unusual shapes. And this is quite a thing in its elements, because not only is it quite big, the curve is extremely shallow. The individual pieces of glass are 2 meters long. The curve is 3 centimeters at each end. It's almost invisible. What is interesting here is the perception of shallow curves in steep perspective. And because you see the project up and down York Way from a distance, you'll see these very, very shallow curves made dramatic by perspective. And that's a visual experiment in a way, and I hope will put the building on the map visually.
I think all design collaborations come out of a mutual respect and mutual understanding. And we worked with Ed and Jeremy many years ago in the Royal Opera House and began to understand their architecture and began to understand the drivers of what they're trying to achieve. So when we arrived at King's Place, the opportunities to collaborate were already on the basis of an established relationship of respect and the desire to achieve a building of quality. A lot of what we do is actually using hand sketches, creating 3D doodles and cartoons to explore ideas, to explore junctions, to explore interfaces, how components come together. And those cartoons are actually very useful for the people who are going to build it because they can see the interfaces between elements.
Each glass is bonded to transoms at the bottom and the top. The transoms are pre-bonded in the factory, so the glass is curved, 2 sheets are curved on the same mould together and put in the oven, and they have to be bent together so that when they're laminated, the 2 sheets are exactly the same curvature.
There were ideas of looking at glass and suspended facades that Ed and Jeremy liked, and that idea of suspending glass to create a curtain, a layer in front of the elevation, was something that Ed and Jeremy were very taken by. It creates depth, it creates layering, but also creates a buffer, a thermal jacket to the building. The type of construction is known by designers as a thermal flue, a thermal chimney. So it acts as a way of trapping a layer of air in front of the building, and as the sun passes through the glass of the outer glass screen, it heats up the blinds, it heats up the walkways, which intercept the solar gain, and through buoyancy, cool air comes in from the bottom of the flue, takes the heat from these interstitial elements, and then passes out through the louvers at the top. So it acts like a big interceptor, a big filter in front of the elevation. The louvers are open when we want to get rid of heat, but then they're closed in the winter time where we actually want to create this insulating jacket in front of the building to trap that warmth that we get from the winter sun and reduce the heat loss from the building. The client is unusual in as much as Peter is an individual, he has a personal involvement, he has a personal relationship, and that makes a very different dynamic for this project in comparison to many others where you're dealing with a construction company. Here you're dealing with an individual who has a vision, who has a passion, and who has a clear direction of where he's trying to go. And by engaging Ed and Jeremy, I think he chose architects who bought into that passion and bought into that vision. Arabs, in effect, are there as marriage brokers between Peter's aspirations and Jeremy and Ed's vision. And we are the guys who are helping inform what is possible, what is buildable with contemporary construction. And hopefully the architects will admit that the design has been part of that collaboration, it's come out of those relationships. I think what is surprising about the project is its simplicity and its elegance in realisation. A lot of these projects start simple, and then to solve problems that emerge during the design process, they become more and more complex. And as you look at the project now, it has the integrity of the original concept rather than a dilution of the concept.